Today on the official Marvel podcast, the cast and crew of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again reflect on an incredible first season.
You know, Matt is one of his mantras from his father is, it's not about how hard you hit the mat, it's that we keep getting back up.
And Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts director, Jake Schreier, dishes on what we can expect from the next chapter in the MCU.
I think what's fun in this movie is that these people are a mystery to each other, and they also don't trust each other, and so they constantly have to be sort of justifying themselves to each other or hiding things from each other.
Plus, we'll catch you up on what the Thunderbolts cast of characters have been up to ahead of the film's release.
I'm Preeti Chibber.
I'm Langston Belton.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
All right, Preeti, we made it all the way to episode 9. You, me, everyone, we all did it together. We made it to the season finale of Daredevil Born Again. How are you feeling?
I am riled up. I am ready to take back the city.
Absolutely right. I am feeling the very same, and I am ready for season 2. But before we get any further, sound, please, if you would, the spoiler alarm.
Okay, so Matt Murdock ends up in the hospital after getting hit with Bullseye's bullet that was actually meant for Mayor Wilson Fisk. And even though Matt inadvertently saved his life, Fisk still sends his henchman Buck to take him out while he's at the hospital. And then the power goes out in the entire city thanks to New York's most corrupt mayor.
Matt leaves the hospital and heads to his apartment right before Buck can kill him. When Matt arrives home, Frank Castle is waiting for him. Together, they fight their way through Fisk's task force. Once they escape Matt's place, Karen Page is waiting for them outside. Turns out she was the one that called Frank to help Matt.
Fisk lets his task force have free reign over New York City, revealing his real plans as mayor to create a city-state that will allow the Fisk's criminal activities to be legally untouchable. Since the police commissioner isn't going to go along with this plan, Fisk takes it upon himself to, putting it lightly or heavily, eliminate him.
The mayor puts the city under martial law. Fisk's task force takes the Punisher hostage, and with Fisk in total control of New York, Daredevil is ready to take the city back.
Episode 9. Okay, there is so much to unpack.
You are not wrong. So, you know what? Let's hand it over to Daredevil Born Again executive producer Dario Scardapane to discuss Matt Murdock's reunions with Frank Castle and Karen Page.
You know, Matt's in a hospital gown coming home, and who's there? Frank. Okay, that's already like, and go. So you set up this kind of framework. You know, when you see Frank Castle and he is wearing that vest, things are going to get weird pretty soon. So all you kind of have to do is wind those two up and step away. But those guys, this is what they do. This is their relationship, and they're great at it. With Frank, I mean, so you also have, again, you have a really strange triangle between the three of those, which we leaned into. I mean, the fact that it's Karen who calls Frank and the three of them end up together is, again, surprising yet inevitable. And I think that in the end, when she's in the back of Josie's and kind of holding his head in her hands and the things that she has to say to him, that's why she came back. You know, she came back. I think she's come back with a very, very specific agenda, one that will be revealed.
We all know that Frank, as portrayed by John Bernthal, has some, let's just call them anger issues. But what's beneath that gruff exterior? Executive producers Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson wanted audiences to see his more vulnerable side.
There's this vulnerability in that gruffness. Like, you know, like he feels for her, but he has like no idea how to express it. And the vulnerability in that is so charming.
And think of the image that people have of the Punisher coming out of the comics. It's in some ways the opposite of what we're talking about. Someone that is like, you just look at him and you just go, oh my gosh, they're in so much pain. They're so vulnerable. It's almost the opposite image. And so the way that John is able to play that, you know, and how that pain comes into what Karen is feeling in that moment and what Matt's feeling. Everybody is just in so much pain that their team up is a bit of a Pyrrhic victory in a way. It feels wonderful because you want to see the three of them on screen together. You know, I mean, it's a really nice triangle of characters. What an opportunity to direct and put together. but also it is not a fist pumping moment in a pure way.
One of the many highlights this season was introducing a new cast of characters. Executive producer Sana Amanat shares that Michael Gandolfini, who plays Daniel Blake, was a particularly fun addition.
I think, who surprised me, I will say, is Michael Gandolfini, who plays Daniel Blake, who was such a delight to be on set and just such a delight to be around. And just his comedic timing, like when he showed up for the first time in the first episode as sort of the goofy Staten Island guy who's really is a huge fan of Fisk, like it gives us a little pop of levity that I feel, with the MCU does so well. And he just was such a relatable character. And we're going to be tracking him, especially as we go into season 2. We are going to track his story and his relationship with Fisk and BB Urich. All of that is going to be really intriguing.
From the diner scene in the season premiere to episode 9, Matt and Fisk's relationship has finally come to a head. Here are Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox discussing that buildup.
Things get pretty hairy. Things build up. Frustrations build up. The need for what our goals are as the characters build up. The pressure starts to affect our relationship in a major way, I think.
Matt is... one of his mantras from his father is it's not about how hard you hit the mat, it's that we keep getting back up. And the irony of that is he is now witnessing that he has witnessed that exact mentality, that exact ability in his arch nemesis. And that same character trait is killing him, as it were. If the thing that I went towards the end of this season, the thing that I'm thinking about the most is it's really impotence. It's like, what can you do? You just can't. What can be done? Which leads us really, hopefully, really beautifully into the second season of this.
Now that Daredevil Born Again season 1 is wrapped, what can we expect from season 2?
In many ways, the first season is a Greek tragedy. The villain rose to power, society has crumbled. The hero has been, for lack of a better word, beaten, right? Season 2 is what I would call a Greek epic. We're not going into comedy. We're going into the idea that the hero returns and sets things right. So what you're seeing is at the end of this season, he declares, this is a city without fear. This is a city that its people is its strength. We're going to see that. Like that's what's coming next. We can all feel it. And it's going bigger and more like writ large than I think Daredevil's ever gone before. But it also, you'll get to a place where, oh, it makes sense. And the craziest thing that happened over the course of making season 2 is the seeds of where season 2 goes are in season 1. It's been really cool to see this show wants to go to a place. So yet Matt, if season 1 was Matt Murdock, there is no Daredevil, season 2 is Daredevil, where is Matt Murdock?
So I think, what's really exciting about the show, and we're very much have been looking at season 1 and season 2 as like part 1 and part 2, because the story doesn't really finish right now. And we're filming season 2 right now, which is amazing. We're in the thick of it. And it is a continuation. Again, it's a continuation of these two character stories and how sort of what happens in season 1 and how obviously we're going to continue to tell their story. But it very much feels like a bigger and epic saga because we're not done yet.
Daredevil Born Again is now streaming only on Disney+.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts is right around the corner. I don't know if I can wait any longer.
Look, it's going to be okay, Langston. To hold us over until the movie's May 2nd release, let's hear from Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier on what drew him to working on the project.
These people are just like us. It's anyone that's sort of failed or fallen off the wagon in a way, or like thought they were destined for something different, and then has to learn that maybe it isn't all about you, and maybe you're not like the lone individual superhero, but if you work together with a group of people, maybe you could become something bigger than yourself. Like, I think that idea is really interesting and really fun. And also just this idea of an action movie where they just fail the whole time until the very end. I mean, that's what we're really working on, is seeing how long we can tease out the idea that they just keep screwing up and screwing up and screwing up. And so that there's this catharsis when they finally do figure it out and learn to work as a team. That felt like a very different kind of action movie than we'd seen. And that felt really fun. I think what's fun in this movie is that these people are a mystery to each other, and they also don't trust each other. And so they constantly have to be sort of justifying themselves to each other or hiding things from each other. And that lack of trust, like, so you get to kind of reveal who they are, in a character way where it doesn't feel like you're just doing it for the audience's benefit. It's like they all need to kind of, like, we might know them better than they know each other in a lot of ways. In an ideal world, they need to learn about each other for character reasons and for plot reasons within the movies. So there's good ways to kind of bring that in. These guys haven't quite been given their same, the Avengers were coming in with like a slightly higher pedigree. And that's kind of the fun of this, is that they want to imagine themselves as heroes like that, but they're not really cut out for that. And so they're going to have to learn that this team is actually their best hope for the way that they could sort of help the world and also help themselves in the process.
And how do you put together such an unpredictable cast of misfits? It was about finding their commonalities.
When we sort of look at the board of them, and as we've been talking about building the story, it's like interesting to kind of see each of their, the relationship that each of them has to the concept of being a hero and the various reasons why that hasn't worked out for them, either because they've rejected that call or because they want that, but they're not cut out for it, or they're looking at it in the wrong way, or they don't really understand the concept of what a hero is. I think Eric did a great job of picking who those characters would be, and then it was just about, like figuring out like how would that ping off of each other, and like what would that lead to, and like what could they accomplish together, and when would they accomplish it. And I think like the other thing that Eric brought that, is just, I think, same as like when I read the Thunderbolts comics, in a lot of ways, like we've seen versions of that before, and Eric had this really good idea that no, it's not like a team of evil villains sent to go do a thing by a government organization. Like we've seen that version. This is people that they're literally being eliminated. They're being tossed away. They're being considered useless and eliminated because they're inconvenient for Val. And instead they have to learn to work together under those circumstances. And that feels like the real like Marvel flip of a thing that Eric came up with that I think is so great. And I think will be a huge surprise for people when they watch the film.
Yelena Belova, played by Florence Pugh, sister of the now deceased Natasha Romanoff, has been through a lot. So where do we find her in the present?
I mean, I think Yelena's in a really, really interesting place because she's sort of, family is a big thing for her. It's what she had ripped away from her when she was young, and she's sought that and then is sort of blames Clint for taking that away from her.
Side note, MCU fans will recall that Valentina Allegra de Fontaine told Yelena that Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, was responsible for Natasha's death, which we, the viewers, know isn't true. By the end of Marvel Studios' Hawkeye, Yelena understands what actually happened to her sister, which is just as painful.
And when we resolve that in Hawkeye, where we find her there, it's like, okay, well, so if my sister wasn't murdered, then in fact she sacrificed herself, and like that, maybe that's good for the world, but that means I just lost family. So we find her at a place like very much rejecting this concept of being a hero and not wanting a part in that, not wanting a stake in it. And Yelena really, as the kind of anchor of the film, has the furthest trajectory to go, because this person that like works alone, wants no part of this, wants out, wants nothing to do with Val anymore, like has to travel the longest journey to not only accept the idea of being on a team, but even leading one and buying into some of these concepts that she's pushed away and even living up to the legacy of her sister.
Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, is also returning to the MCU. And according to Jake, we all know exactly what he wants.
He wants glory. He wants to be part of something bigger than himself, but it's not, at least at the beginning of our film, again, it's not for what I think we would define as the right reasons. It's because he wants to views himself on the level of Captain America and these heroes that he's read about. And, he's kind of, what's fun about him in the film is he gets to kind of speak for, I think probably what the audience will want is he just wants these people to work together.
And what's Taskmaster, played by Olga Kurylenko, been up to? Jake is excited to continue Antonia Dreykov's story.
It's really fun to have the opportunity. We last saw her in Black Widow, and that's so long ago, like as a film that we get to imagine a sort of new history for Antonia and what she's been doing for Val. But yeah, I think for all of these folks, like we get to see them one step removed from where we last saw them and in a new storyline of like what they've had to fall into. Because, you know, I mean, what are the work opportunities for someone that's been raised as a super assassin under mind control? Like you would, whatever you wanted, you might end up in another situation that feels sort of theoretically different. Like theoretically it's up to you and you're a freelance contractor, but in the end, like how far have you really gotten away from that? And is there something out there that's better for you and a better connection that you can form?
Another one of the cast's most complex characters is John Walker, played by Wyatt Russell. Will he ever find peace after everything he's been through?
Yeah, I don't know if those demons get to rest so easy for John Walker. And I think, you know, he's actually the one character, I mean, Yelena to some degree, but he's the one that the most we've seen agree to work for Val. I mean, that was the first time I really got to see the idea of Val putting this team together. So I think probably at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, he viewed this as, okay, like I have some purpose again. There's something I could be, even if I wasn't up to being Captain America. And I think where we'll find him here is maybe that hasn't quite lived up to what he hoped it would be working for someone like that. You know, didn't quite realize what he was getting himself into.
And of course, we can't forget Bucky. Here's what Jake has to say about the film's connection with the Winter Soldier.
I think, you know, for us, like the fun with Bucky is that obviously it's just such a great character and gives us a connection to that legacy and that history of what Marvel has done, but also has been through a version of what they've been through, but is in a different point along that trajectory of being able to process that, like has processed some of that more than they have.
Thunderbolts is going to be an action-packed adventure, but it's also going to have heart.
I mean, I think there's going to be some really massive action, but it should feel like it's at human scale, you know, and I think that like we really prioritize so far in building it on, again, just like what situation these guys are in and the sort of tactile nature of getting out of it. And also just this like constant failure, which is just not something that you see. And so if you imagine like set pieces built towards failure as opposed towards success, like I think there's something really fun about that and something that feels really different. They probably could, you know, they have some powers. They could probably get out of any of this if they could learn to work together. But the whole point of the movie is that they can't. And so you get to watch a team fail and fail and fail over again, specifically because of that lack of trust. And the idea is that there will be sort of catharsis in the action once they're actually finally able to trust each other.
So what can fans expect from the film? According to Jake, a whole lot of fun.
I think you're going to see like a really fun, taut action movie that should be really exciting, and also one that flips the expectation of what this group is going to be and how they're going to succeed on its head, because they're not going to succeed. They're going to fail left and right, and it's going to be in increasingly fun ways with bigger disaster left in its wake. And I think that's going to be really exciting for people to watch.
Now that Jake Schreier has us excited ahead of Thunderbolts' May 2nd release, let's catch up on where we last saw this ragtag crew across the MCU.
If you've seen the trailers to Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, you most likely spotted some familiar faces among the ranks of the MCU's newest super team. To make sure we're all up to speed and ready for action, here is a quick refresher on who the Thunderbolts are and just what they've been up to since we last saw them.
First up, Yelena Belova, little sister to Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. After years of separation, the two teamed up in Marvel Studios' Black Widow to take down the Red Room, the secret Soviet organization that had abducted them as children, brainwashed them, and forcibly trained them to become master assassins. But after Natasha's tragic death, Yelena got involved with the mysterious Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
I've got your next target. Thought I'd hand deliver it. Maybe you'd like a shot at the man responsible for your sister's death.
The man she's referring to is Clint Barton, the Avenger known as Hawkeye. But during their confrontation in Marvel Studios' Hawkeye, Clint explained to Yelena that Natasha sacrificed herself to save the world from Thanos and his Infinity Gauntlet.
It shouldn't have gone this way. If I was there, I could have stopped it. I could have changed it.
Nothing was gonna stop her, Elena. You know Natasha. She made her choice. We're gonna have to find a way to live with that.
By the end of that series, Yelena hadn't exactly forgiven Hawkeye, but she did drop her vendetta against him. After being the puppet of one mastermind or another for most of her life, the main thing Yelena seeks now is some control over her own life and destiny.
Next, we have Alexei Shostakov, the Red Guardian, the man who helped raise Yelena and Natasha before the Red Room took them. Their fake family may have only been a cover for a Russian spy mission, but that didn't quell Alexei's affection for his sort of daughters.
You both have killed so many people. Your ledgers must be dripping, just gushing red. I couldn't be more proud of you.
But Alexei was no run-of-the-mill operative. Back in the day, he had been the USSR's very own super soldier, which he bragged about in Black Widow.
Captain America, my great adversary in this theater of geopolitical conflict. Not so much a nemesis, more like a contemporary, co-equal. I always thought there was a great deal of mutual respect.
He squeezed himself back into his old Red Guardian suit.
It still fits.
To help Natasha and Yelena take down the Red Room, proving that, for Alexei, family ties run deeper than political ideologies. When we last saw Red Guardian, he was ushering the freshly unbrainwashed Red Room recruits to safety to help them start new lives.
Which brings us to Antonia Dreykov, aka Taskmaster, one of the young women Red Guardian was taking into his care. Antonia's father, General Dreykov, was the evil head of the Red Room, whom years earlier Natasha had attempted to kill by blowing up his apartment. Natasha's attempt failed, and young Antonia accidentally became collateral damage. Seriously wounded in the explosion, Antonia's life was, quote-unquote, saved when her father implanted her with technology that turned her into a human weapon, allowing her to instantly duplicate any fighting move she witnessed. Under the same mind control as the other Red Room trainees, Antonia became her dad's personal assassin. Her new role came complete with a full-bodied armored suit that masked both her identity and gender, as we saw in Black Widow.
Who the hell is that guy? Draco's special project. He can mimic anyone he's ever seen. It's like fighting a mirror.
By the end of the film, with the Red Room destroyed and General Dreykov finally dead, Antonia's mind was her own again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Is he gone? He's gone.
As she left with Red Guardian, Antonia, like Yelena, was faced with the question of what to do with her newfound freedom.
Which leads us to another character who knows a thing or two about being a brainwashed assassin, Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. For decades, Bucky had been hypnotized into acting as a killing machine for the terrorist organization Hydra. Ever since his old partner Steve Rogers, the original Captain America, freed him from Hydra's influence, Bucky has fought hard to redeem himself. He battled Thanos alongside the Avengers and took on global threats with Sam Wilson, the new Captain America. But fully escaping his past has proven difficult, a fact Bucky was reminded of by former super soldier Isaiah Bradley, as seen in Marvel Studios' The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Not a killer anymore.
You think you can wake up one day and decide who you want to be? It doesn't work like that.
Eventually, thanks to some encouragement from Cap, Bucky went on a mission to make up for the harm he'd caused as the Winter Soldier.
You want to climb out of that hell you're in. Do the work. Do it.
I've been making amends.
You weren't amending, you were avenging. You were stopping all the wrongdoers you enabled as the Winter Soldier because you thought it would bring you closure. You go to these people and say sorry because you think it'll make you feel better, right? But you got to make them feel better. You got to go to them and be of service.
Bucky also has some experience, for better or for worse, working alongside our next Thunderbolt, John Walker. John is the decorated Army veteran who was granted the mantle of Captain America after Steve Rogers vacated the role.
Look, here's the thing. I'm not Tony Stark. I'm not Dr. Banner. Okay, I don't have the flashiest gadgets. I don't have super strength. But what I do have is guts.
But John Walker is battling some demons of his own. And after he killed a suspect in full view of innocent bystanders, Walker's Captain America title was revoked. But that didn't stop him from forging his own homemade shield and inserting himself into international conflicts anyway. An act that, rather than earning him a court-martial, earned him the attention of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Things are about to get weird. So when they do, we're not going to need a Captain America. We're gonna need a U.S. agent.
When we last saw John, he was very excited to start working for Valentina.
Back. Lastly, we have Ava Starr, aka Ghost. As a little girl, Ava was drenched in quantum radiation when one of her scientist father's experiments exploded. The incident caused her to flicker between solid and intangible states, as she explained in Marvel Studios' Ant-Man and the Wasp.
They call it molecular disequilibrium. A rather dull name, I think. Doesn't quite do justice to what it means. Every cell in my body is torn apart and stitched back together. Over and over.
Scientists at S.H.I.E.L.D. offered to help her, but had ulterior motives.
They weaponized me. I stole for them, spied for them. I killed for them. And in exchange for my soul, they were going to cure me. They lied.
Another person turned into an unwilling weapon. But worse, Ava's condition was slowly killing her. Taking matters into her own phantasmic hands, she began stealing equipment from Hank Pym, quantum scientist and the original Ant-Man. Her goal was to heal herself by draining quantum energy from Janet Van Dyne, the original Wasp, a move that would have resulted in Janet's death. Their battle concluded when a sympathetic Janet voluntarily shared some of her quantum energy with Ava, stabilizing her, at least temporarily.
Your pain. I can feel it. It hurts. It always hurts. I'm sorry. I think I can help you.
At the end of the film, we saw Ava become a fugitive on the run from police looking to arrest her for the damage she caused in her campaign against Hank, and any secret operatives who might be looking to make her a weapon again.
So, to sum up, the Thunderbolts team is packed with folks who all have checkered pasts and troubled presents. Which begs the question, what could bring these troubled souls together? And how well will they work together as a team? Find out May 2nd when Thunderbolts hits theaters like a thunderbolt. On this day in 2018, the star-studded world premiere of Marvel Studios' Avengers: Infinity War took place in Hollywood, California. Stars in attendance included Robert Downey Jr., Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Chris Hemsworth, Samuel L. Jackson, the late great Chadwick Boseman, and too many more Avengers to count. According to Variety, the premiere was delayed by an hour because the cast were busy signing autographs and answering questions. But hey, that's not a bad reason to start a little late. Avengers: Infinity War is the 19th film in the MCU, and it follows Earth's mightiest heroes as they try to stop Thanos from getting his hands on the 6 Infinity Stones. In a twisted effort to bring balance to an overpopulated cosmos, Thanos wants to use the stones to eliminate half of all life in the universe. So yeah, pretty high stakes. As if that wasn't enough, Secretary of State Thaddeus Ross is not happy with Steve Rogers and the rest of the Avengers. Ross had previously signed off on the Sokovia Accords, rules meant to control what enhanced individuals could and could not do. Steve publicly decries the Accords, solidifying an ugly rift between him and Ross.
You got some nerve. I'll give you that.
You could use some of that right now.
The world's on fire. And you think all's forgiven?
I'm not looking for forgiveness. And I'm way past asking permission. Earth just lost your best defender. So we're here to fight. And if you want to stand in our way, we'll fight you too.
Avengers: Infinity War is available to stream on Disney+. Next week on the Official Marvel Podcast, we'll hear from Thunderbolt stars Hannah John Kamen, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, and Florence Pugh.
Something that has been really brave of Jake and Marvel is really looking at the inner workings of these characters and how they feel, and that shiny life isn't actually so shiny at home.
That's it for this episode. If you haven't already, make sure to leave us a review wherever you are listening. It helps other Marvel fans find the show.
Yes, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode.
This episode was hosted by Preeti Chibber and myself, Langston Belton.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores, with additional writing by Christopher Healy.
With help from Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development Brad Barton and Production Manager Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Rye Dorsey.
Theme music by Ida Akbal.
Executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.